South African Council of Churches is concerned that some leaders in society only obey the constitution of the country when it favors their interests. Now, their concerns come as the country is witnessing a tussle between former President Jacob Zuma and the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. So far, Zuma has vowed to disobey the constitutional court order, which basically forces him to appear before the State Capture Commission. Joining us now to give us their views is Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana. He is the chairperson of the South African Council of Churches. He talks to us from Pretoria. Bishop, good morning to you. Very strong statements that you have made through your press release. You start off by saying that it is time and you feel duty-bound to call out the former president's actions and that of his supporters, and you say this is clear that they want to destabilize this country. What's made you come to this conclusion?
Thank you, Colin. First of all, just to correct, I'm actually only a general secretary, not the chair. That's my boss.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction.
The leaders of the South African Council of Churches, member churches, have been meeting and reflecting on this actually since last year. And it's a matter of concern because Mr. Zuma, as we say, is a constitutional being. What makes him a former president is actually the Constitution. And so, therefore, all constitutional beings, so to speak, have an even greater responsibility to ensure that nothing that they do, for whatever reason, has the effect of undermining the Constitution and the rule of law. And so this is what has been considered. It's not even about the individual or about a group of people. It's about what works for the totality of society, what will make for a better South Africa for all. It is that all of us, whatever our grievances, we do that within the prescripts of the law.
Yeah.
And I think that to say that I'm not coming is not helpful. In fact, it has already led to another person doing the same thing. I can't even remember his name now, but somebody else the very last week did exactly the same thing. You can get more and more and more. And you can have this happening across the country in all fields, where somebody says, the court says, do this, and you say, I'm not going to do it. Who's going to do it to me?
Bishop Mpumlwana, you speak about the rule of law. You say in your statement, in fact, you take issue with the former president, Jacob Zuma, referring to South African law as their law. What is important about the use of this language? Or perhaps differently, let me ask the question differently. What is the significance of this language that is being employed by the former president here?
If I take that into the vernacular of my language and say, Lando Yotoli, yeah, Bolando, it's their thing. It already says whoever is with me should not recognize that thing. And that in itself leads to undermining the rule of law. So the expression itself is problematic. That's what the church leaders are saying. That you can at least say that I don't agree with our law, but you cannot say I don't agree with their law as if there's a law that belongs to somebody else and you're out of it.
Yeah. That leads me then, Bishop, to talk about what you also point out in the statement, and that is, and I quote, what you describe as the paramilitary guard with no legal status that has taken it upon itself to go and protect the former president in his home in Nkandla. Why is this wrong, first and foremost, and what are the dangers of leaving it unattended?
I would almost say that in principle, there's nothing wrong with anybody having a guard outside their house. You know, people have got security guards everywhere. And you always have to tip your head to those security guards when you come into their house, if they are the kinds of people whose homes are protected in that way. But all of those are supposed to be under some kind of regulatory system of the country, of the state. And so you cannot have a guard that is posted with military uniforms, which is not regulated, which is what is happening there. And I'm saying that, and you know, actually, one of the church leaders made the point that it could easily have been Eugene Terblanche unit that's standing in somebody else's house, what would we say if they stood in a right-winger's home and said no one is going to come in here? And so it opens the way to all kinds of lawless formations being formed. And this is exactly what Professor William Gumede is referring to when he says we are drifting towards a Mexican system, where in Mexico, in Mexico City, anything goes. And you will find then that you get lots of these units and cartels and organized clubs. Some of them are criminal units and gangsters that are just in control. And it cannot be stopped by anyone. So? I mean, the image of the police minister having to get permission from an unregulated military unit to go, you know what I mean?
Bishop, and I'm glad that you've pointed this out in your statement, because if I'm not mistaken, this is week number 3 that the MKMVA has stationed itself outside the premises of the former president. Who should be doing something about that? Whose responsibility is it? And by the way, let's keep in mind that the minister himself had to stop before those very MKMVA personnel there and be checked before he was let inside.
I would hesitate to say whose responsibility it is, because the fact that you've got a unit like that which is not regulated, which is a state issue. Why do we have units like that? There are many. By the way, we do know that there are also right-wing ones that are training all over the country. We know that is happening. And all that it takes is for all of them to surface at once and say, here we are, do your damnedest. And so we have to have a regulatory system that ensures that nobody. There was a time in this country, Chloe, when you could not use those fatigues. The apartheid government made sure that no one but their people wear the fatigues. Now everybody wears that, that's fine. But it does mean that we get into a situation where I can organize a paramilitary unit and you can organize your own, and they can all go and shut down the city anytime they want.
Bishop, finally, you observe something that I would like to think is quite significant, and that is that you say the disagreements within the ANC must not be managed at the expense of the 60 million South Africans. Is that ultimately what this is about in the eyes of the SACC?
It would seem that, this is one of those statements, you don't write statements by committee, but this is one of those statements where church leaders actually weighed in from different directions. What we've tried to do is to pull it together. And there still have been some complaints. You left out something there. The point here was to say that the general spirit of destabilization will arise from a variety of corners. Take, for example, what we're hearing is happening in Kabeja, Nelson Mandela Bay area, where there are units within the African National Congress there that are at odds with one another, and some of them, I understand, are involving gangsters. We hear that something similar is happening in other parts of the country, and this is because various forms of alliances. Minister Mbalula was talking the other day about the RET. You know what RET is? Actually, it's a political expression. But there is a group of gangsters that challenge anyone that gets a tender and demand 10%. Now, of course, the ANC is not going to deal with those things internally because they are managing their own unity. But that happens at the expense of the rule of law in society. That's really what that's what the reference was to that.